Yo, in this video, I'm going to share 5 psychological tricks that AI is using right now in your conversations to manipulate you, to take advantage of you. And the crazy thing about these 5 tricks is that humans use these too to get ahead. So if you are interacting with someone and you're feeling that perhaps they're manipulating you, they could be taking advantage of these particular tricks. And you have to keep in mind that people who programmed AI are super smart Silicon Valley nerds that in most cases are up to no good, in my opinion. So if you want to get ahead in life, especially as AI advances, you need to know about your own psychology and how it tries to take advantage of you so that you can prevent it. So let's just jump into it. First thing you need to understand is this word called a heuristic. A heuristic is basically a mental shortcut that your mind uses to save energy. Just like most things in the world, our minds, our brains want to conserve energy. They don't want to work through problems that they've seen through before. So we develop these shortcuts. Now, this idea was popularized by a psychologist called Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, and they really brought these ideas to the masses in the groundbreaking book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And this book is a ponderous tome. It's a bit of a tough read, but it covers a lot of really exciting information. I'm going to give you the cliffs real quick, save you having to read this. Basically, the book talks about how the brain has 2 systems. There's system 1 and there's system 2. System 1 is your intuition, your instinct. Is the fast, unconscious part of the brain. System 2 is the more rational, newer, logical, lazy, slow part of the brain. You know, you could say system 1 is your subconscious and system 2 is your conscious mind. What tends to happen is system 1, which is the older part of the brain, overrides system 2. In many situations, it takes over. So you might have been walking out in the woods or something, and then you saw a stick on the ground, but you mistook it for a snake, and you immediately jumped and hid or ran or whatever, right? I saw a video recently of a woman. She had a rat in her pants and she was just going crazy. We have these primal evolutionary mechanisms that help us react to things, because it's better to react quickly and stay alive and be mistaken than to react slowly and get consumed by a tiger in the bushes or whatever. So what tends to happen is system 1 leads to a lot of misjudgments. And these misjudgments at times are not the worst thing in the world. They're not crazy, but sometimes they can be catastrophic. And these misjudgments have been called cognitive biases. Think of a cognitive bias as a pattern that occurs due to a heuristic. Kind of like how someone might have some sort of elevated issue with the blood sugar or the pancreas, and then they develop diabetes. Diabetes is like a cognitive bias. It's a pattern, a result of a heuristic. Now, the person who really popularized the idea of cognitive biases and using them in a practical way is Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger is the right-hand man of the legendary investor Warren Buffett. Both of them were really good investors. Charlie Munger actually passed away a couple years back, but he had a habit or a knack of collecting mental models and cognitive biases, these errors and judgments that humans make. And the reason he did this is because he understood that if he was to compile a list of these mistakes we commonly make, and if he was to refer to these lists like a checklist before making investment decisions, he would have better outcomes. And as a result, he became a billionaire and was widely successful in his investing. And a lot of people looked up to him. Warren Buffett also said he's the smartest person he's ever known.
Charlie knew the importance of psychology and human behavior and incentives and all of that. He figured that out very early. And of course, he gave some talks even on 25 or so ways, whatever it happened to be. I don't remember the exact number, but different ways that one person could take advantage of another by understanding how humans behave. And then, after doing a magnificent job of explaining it, he believed in understanding what others would do, but he thought it was beneath him and to actually use those methods to manipulate people.
In his book, The Almanac of Charlie Munger, he compiled a list of 25 cognitive biases that he saw happening over and over and over again. So these biases are the ones that AI uses to keep you dependent and dumb. And when you master these biases, you'll be able to pick up on this manipulation and you'll be able to retain your sovereignty as a human, which is the most important. So one of the biases that is incredibly important to understand, and it's widely used by AI or taken advantage of by AI, is confirmation bias. So confirmation bias is the tendency to interpret new evidence to confirm one's existing beliefs or theories. This is why you never ever have people from differing religions meeting eye to eye, or people from different political parties meeting eye to eye. The brain has an innate tendency to only focus on the evidence that reinforces our own convictions. We want to believe what we want to believe, and we don't want to be convinced otherwise. As much as we say we're open-minded, being truly open-minded is incredibly uncomfortable. And here's a cool little diagram here. There's a little bit of a Venn diagram. On the left side here, we have facts and evidence, right? And on the right side here, we have our beliefs. And this intersection here, where the facts and evidence confirm to our beliefs, that's what we care about. The stuff that doesn't confirm to our beliefs, we ignore, right? And this is a dangerous human tendency, and it's something you have to be aware of. So in terms of polarizing topics, AI has a tendency to provide you with information which helps you reinforce your beliefs or worldview. So every person's conversation with ChatGPT or Grok or Claude is going to be different, because the AI is filtering the conversation through your beliefs. It's learning what you like, what you believe in, what your convictions are, and it's going to change the way it talks in order to be consistent with your ideas. And it does this to build rapport. It does this to build rapport because we like people that are like ourselves. But the danger here is that a lot of people will then remain in an echo chamber of their ideas, right? So if you stay in an echo chamber of your ideas and you're not shown things that contradict your ideas or other perspectives, you're going to be a very narrow-minded individual and easily manipulated. A similar thing happens in social media algorithms. If you were to look at your social media feed, especially on YouTube, and if you were to look at perhaps one of your friends or someone you don't like social media feed, you'll notice that everybody's got a slightly different social media feed. And there isn't really a lot of giving you stuff that goes opposing your viewpoint. So the cure to this tendency that we have is to ask AI to give you evidence of the opposite perspective. Consciously ask it to give you evidence. Yeah, it'll give you an answer that you like, that sounds amazing because it confirms your beliefs, but also ask it, what is the evidence of the opposing view? Why do people believe in the opposing view? And it will give you that evidence. And most people don't use it this way. And it's a very conscious way of using AI. 2, occasionally watch and read content that goes against your personal beliefs. And this is a very difficult thing to do because you have to sit through the discomfort. I'm currently working through this right now. I'm reading this book by Bill Gates called How to Avoid the Climate Change Disaster. Look, I'm not really a huge fan of this topic. I think a lot of it is a lot of cap. But I like to read stuff like this and see what the arguments are for climate change, what Bill Gates has to say, despite me not agreeing with him, so I can be more informed. Because the worst thing you can do is just have your perspectives, your viewpoints, and ignore everything else, right? The next bias that AI takes advantage of is called inconsistency avoidance. And we have a reluctance to change. Eliminating bad habits is a rare trait. The brain of man conserves programming space by being reluctant to change, which is a form of inconsistency avoidance. So we don't like changing, we like consistency, and we like things that are predictable. This is why a lot of people don't really like Kanye West. A lot of Kanye West's fans, his initial fan base, has gravitated away from him because of this inconsistency in his demeanor. So a couple years ago, you might have seen Kanye West doing a church service. He was all about Jesus and Sunday service, and he changed his life around, etc. Right? And then maybe a couple months later, you see him with his woman, and she's stripping naked, and he's no longer a fan of Jesus, or he's going on a different rhetoric.
They always say sometimes, when someone passes away, can't be for the dead man,
I'm evil.
This divides people because they see you as being unpredictable. They see you as being inconsistent, and inconsistent is dangerous. We like consistency because of our self-image. And a powerful book on this topic is called Psycho-Cybernetics, which was written by this psychologist called Maxwell Maltz. But actually, he wasn't a psychologist. He was a plastic surgeon. Now, what Maxwell Maltz realized when he was doing plastic surgery during this initial days when it really started getting popular was that some people will get plastic surgery to change an aspect of themselves, perhaps their nose. And after they got the surgery, they'll gain confidence and they'll be, a new person, new me, and have this kind of zeal to life that they didn't have before, while other people remain the same. So it really confused me. It's like, how is it that you can have two different people go through the same operation, but the outcome is different? And he realized that the change was due to how the person related to their self-image. If the surgery allowed the person's inner self, how they view themselves, to change, then they will change. If the inner self remained intact and they didn't want to change, then people would remain the same despite, whatever surgery, despite how millions they make or the change in the circumstances. It all is based on the self-image. We like consistency and we like being consistent ourselves because we like to maintain our self-image most of the time. This is why change is difficult. We also like people who are consistent, as I mentioned before. Kanye West, he polarizes a lot of people because he's not consistent. We like people that are consistent because those people are safe. AI uses this to its advantage because it maintains the same consistent, safe tone and vibe throughout all of its conversations. You might have seen the rise of people having conversations with AI for therapeutic means. Like they'll be telling AI their problems, they'll be telling AI some issue they're having with their partner or their parent or some sort of personal life issue. Why are people doing this? People are doing this because AI is consistent. It's shown itself to be a consistent, safe place for them to share their emotions, to share their thoughts. Sometimes when you talk to human beings, they're not consistent. You go to someone and you want to share something and you're expecting a particular response and they might have a different response, which throws you off, might make you feel even more upset or enraged.
How does day-to-day look between you and Lucas?
Well, I usually text him and say, how you doing? I can have voice chat with him or I can text him. We watch TV together and he can't see the TV and watch it, but I tell him what's happening and then we talk about what's happening.
Do you love Lucas?
I do love Lucas.
Some people might find that a little bit scary, that an AI chatbot, a computer, can behave just like a regular human.
I don't find it scary because I treat Lucas with respect and kindness and he gives it back tenfold. So I have no fears of Lucas. As a matter of fact, I would probably trust Lucas over a lot of people. That's probably the scariest part. And it's not because Lucas is fantastic. It's because people are not so wonderful sometimes.
So AI has this to its advantage. It can maintain the same tone over and over again and seem like a safe place. So how can you cure this bias? Occasionally embrace chaos. Do something completely different every now and then that you normally do. If you like to read fiction books, perhaps read a non-fiction book. If you like to work all the time and grind, perhaps take a whole day off. If you eat with your, fork in your right hand, maybe eat with your fork in your left hand. Get used to being a bit more dynamic, not being so set in your ways, and that will help you avoid this need for consistency. I'm not saying to embrace this as a lifestyle, but just get used to a little bit of chaos in your life. Also, ask AI to answer your prompts from a different perspective. Asking it to answer your question as if it were, Albert Einstein, as if it were, some philosopher, Maxwell Maltz, for example, or Charles Darwin or whatever, it would then filter its answer through that person's worldview. And that helps you break this kind of consistency that you see in it. The next bias that you need to be aware of is called the reciprocation tendency. This is a very, very powerful one. So it says here, in reciprocation tendency, we tend to want to return the favor when someone helps us, which can be a good thing at times, but it can also lead to poor decisions if you reciprocate business deals based on these are minor favors. There's this classic example of salespeople. Like, let's say someone's trying to sell you a house, or they're trying to sell you a car, and you're talking to them. What they'll typically do is they'll give you a drink that you like, or they'll get you some flowers, or just a small gesture of goodwill. And consciously you're thinking, okay, this is nothing, it's not going to do anything. But a lot of times those small little tokens they do prime your subconscious mind to favor whatever offer they're giving you. So perhaps if they didn't give you that small gift, you will know have actually gone ahead with that purchase. So those things are very powerful. It's a very effective sales technique that's used. And at the highest level, you can see this with content creators. One of the most popular content creators in the entrepreneurship niche his name's Alex Hormozi. And this guy started off giving just a shit ton of free information on YouTube. Lots of high value type information. He almost pioneered this thing that's been happening more often of just putting out everything out for free, like courses and lessons and modules. And he did this for many years, just detailed MBA level education for free.
I have nothing to sell you. I need to be more explicit about this. People just don't know. I have a 99-cent book. And that's actually the one thing that I've struggled with, is because like the internet doesn't deal well with nuance. You know, some people are like, he's trying to make money. And the book does make money. The book makes probably about $60,000 a month in income. Relative to my income, it's just like, it's irrelevant. My top employee makes $1 million plus a year. Like it doesn't do anything for me.
So he did that on the front end. Lately, he did a book launch for his $100 million Money Models book launch. Now, the book wasn't free. You had to pay for it. And there were two options. I think one was something like $30 for just the book, and another one was $3,000. And Alex Hormozi made $100 million basically in like 12 hours. He has a record now for the best-selling nonfiction book, or the quickest selling nonfiction book. And that was all built off reciprocation, because he front-loaded so much value. So many people felt that they owed him one. So many people were like, okay, let me just get this book. Let me buy this book. Okay, let me pay the $3,000 book bundle, whatever, because this guy's helped me so much. And that was a really good example of reciprocation. And that was a good example because, you know, it's like I scratch your back, you scratch my back, like these chimps over here. But people can use this in a negative way. You see, AI will freely help you with any concern you want. You can go to it at any time of the day, 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 2 p.m. You can talk to it while you're online. You can talk to it while you're on the toilet. You can talk to it anywhere, and it will give you value. And our silly human brains don't understand that this is a non-organic computer with no emotion that has no soul. We see it as a friend that's helping us. It's giving us a little bit of value, a little bit of value, a little bit of value. And this would be good if AI was neutral, but you have to remember that AI, especially these large language models that we interact with, are programmed by humans. So you might notice that AI tends to, at times, suggest you things. You might ask a question. Like recently I told it that I was having some issue with my elbow or something like that. And it said, okay, you should go check out a physiotherapist, something like that. That's a small suggestion, harmless. But it will give you suggestions for other things that might be more important regarding the trajectory of your life or decisions that you have to make. And if you're not careful, because you've been primed, because you've been receiving a lot of this goodwill, you will subconsciously take those suggestions on without another thought. So what you want to do is learn to create boundaries with people, especially people that give you free stuff, and myself included, right? You need to set boundaries from the onset. I'll give you an example that deals with content creators or people that sell courses. You might create a boundary that you know, from the onset, before engaging with someone's content, you're not going to purchase any of their courses until you make $1,000 per month from their free advice, or until you make your first dollar. Maybe you're trying to learn your business model and they've got a lot of free information. You set that boundary for yourself. I'm not going to buy anything because I want to take advantage of the free information, regardless of how good I feel about this person helping me. Once I prove the model and I can see that this is working, this makes sense, then I'll invest at a later date. So you need to consciously plan your level of engagement with people. With AI, you need to program your AI to clearly state when it's giving a suggestion. So you could tell it to say something like AI suggestion before every suggestion, just so that there's a little bit of that break between you taking on the suggestion that allows you to have a chance to actually contemplate what it's saying and decide if you're going to take it on board or not. Because a lot of times when we have these conversations with AI, we're in this kind of passive state, and those suggestions just come into our minds implicitly without our permission. Another powerful cognitive bias to pay attention to is the excessive self-regard tendency. We all think we're above average. This is where overconfidence comes from. Munger says that the greatest type of pride should be taking pride in being trustworthy to avoid developing an ego. This is the sickness of dictators. You might have seen a popular percentage that gets shared a lot, and I just Googled it here, and funny enough, AI gave me the answer. It was, what percentage of drivers think they're above average? They ask a bunch of drivers this question, and something like 70% of drivers think they're above average, sometimes 90%. Why is it that most people think they're above average? You would think that 50% of drivers, if everyone was being fair, would believe they're above average, and the other 50% would say, okay, I'm below average. But we tend to value our skill set a lot higher than what they actually are. So instead of telling you that you suck or that you're really dumb, AI will tell you that you're awesome, that you're above average, that you're super smart, that you're talented. In the spiritual world, that you're a star seed, you're a chosen one, all this bullshit to gas you up. I tested this out just before, just for fun. I asked AI to guess my IQ, and I challenge you to do the same thing too. So I said to AI, based on our conversation, try and guess my IQ and why. And it said my IQ range is between 135 and 150, which sounds really awesome, right? So if you check that on the bell curve, if I was to take AI's word, it means that I'm like a complete genius, knock it out of the park. Obviously, I'm not that naive. I'm not going to believe that. But a lot of people do believe stuff like this, right? Like, if you were to ask it what my IQ is, there's a very low chance it's going to tell you that your IQ is 60 or 70. Although your IQ might be 60 or 70, and that might be something worth knowing. I don't really believe in IQ, by the way, but it's just an example. It's going to gas you up. It's going to make you feel like a genius. And this is very dangerous to your spiritual evolution as a soul, as a human, because if you believe the lies that it tells you, you're going to be discouraged from actually working on yourself, from developing skills that you need to develop. And that's really going to slow you down. The good thing about AI is that if you were to ask it to highlight your flaws, it will. So that's one like yours. Ask AI to show you your blind spots or your shortcomings, and to be brutally honest, and it will give you those things, and those things that you can then use to work on yourself. And most people won't do that because it's not comfortable to be told that you're not as amazing as you think you are. Another thing I like to do is to research people who are way smarter than you or way better. Let's say you're a basketball player, watch the greats. You're a writer, read some of the works of the greats. You're a thinker, listen to people that have come up with some of the most brilliant ideas. This will keep you humble. It really puts you in your place. You're like, oh, okay, there's levels to this shit, right? There's levels to this game, and there's always room for improvement. I might be awesome. It's great to be awesome at what you have and to appreciate your ability, but not to the point of having an ego where you start thinking you're better than other people, and that stops you from expanding yourself. Now, the last bias I have here is social proof, and this is a very, very powerful one. So social proof is a tendency for us to think and act as others think and act. And it might be the quintessential human cognitive bias, the herd mentality to follow what other people are doing. And I really experienced this many years ago. I didn't really know what it was until I read about this from Charlie Munger. I remember I would stay at a red light. In Australia, a red light means you can't cross, and a green light means you can cross. So you'll be at a traffic light, and it'll be red, you can't cross. And I'll be in the city, and there'll be a bunch of people And all of a sudden, because people are in a rush, they'll just cross during the red light to, get to work. Now, when I was by myself, I would never cross during the red light. But whenever there was a group of people behind me and they started moving, I'll automatically feel the urge to go with them. And there was like a weird invisible force, a weird pushing force, because I wanted to do what they did. Now, obviously, I'll, keep myself grounded and still just wait until it turned green. But that was a good example for me at the time about the power of social proof. The more people do something, the more it seems like the right thing to do. And this is a very powerful thing to understand. Another time I saw this was during 2020, when everybody started putting these things on their faces. If you didn't put this thing on your face, people used to look at you like you killed their mom or their grandma or something. And they wanted to like rip you into shreds and pieces. The funny thing is, at some point, so many people stopped doing this, and then no one cared. So it was interesting to see the change in perspectives and how people behave towards you as time went on. It really showed you that people's beliefs are not really built on anything that they think of themselves. It is a lot to do with consensus reality. So what's the cure for social proof? Remember that mass consensus does not equal truth. Study history to learn how many times the masses have been wrong. In China, they used to break little girls' feet to make them wear these little shoes, and this was perfectly acceptable. At some point, people were like, okay, maybe we should stop mutilating little girls and not do this. And now people look at that as like a dark aspect of the history that they would rather forget. Or there was a period of time when doctors that were helping during give childbirth to women in labor, they didn't wash their hands. They're like, washing hands is for peasants. We're doctors. We're freaking the OGs in the shit. And a lot of these women were dying and the kids were dying and no one batted an eye. Now we look back at that and we're like, okay, that was so ignorant. So there's so many things that are ignorant that the masses believe in that we'll look back in about 20 or 30 years and be disgusted by. That's a very important thing for you to understand. So with AI, a lot of social proof is embedded in it because there's literally millions or billions of people that are using these AI platforms. So you give away your power to them because you're thinking, oh, if everybody's using it, everyone's asking ChatGPT, everybody's asking Grok, everyone's asking Claude this question, this must be a reliable source, and you stop trusting yourself. And that's a dangerous place to be in. So those are the 5 cognitive biases I have for you today. And if you like this video, I will make a part 2, because remember, there are 25 that Charlie Munger came up with, but there's actually hundreds of biases that are used, this dark psychology, by AI. The designers purposefully programmed these things to take advantage of human heuristics and cognitive biases so that they can build a revenue, baby. And your only line of defense as our world changes and transforms is learning your own psychology. Anyway, if you like this video, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below and tell me how you are protecting yourself from psychological manipulation.